Olu had always been known as the perfect daughter in her village. Other mothers would often point at her whenever they were scolding their children. "Why can't you be like Olu?" they would say. "See how she helps her mother. See how she greets her elders." Olu's father was the head deacon in the village church, and her mother led the women's prayer group. Their family name carried weight in every corner of the village. They were well respected. Olu was 17 years old and very beautiful. She had never given her parents a single moment of worry. Every morning before school, she swept the compound carefully. After school, she helped her younger siblings with their homework. She never talked back to her parents and never stayed out late. But everything began to change the year Obinna came to spend the summer holiday at his aunt's house. Obinna was 18 and had grown up in the big city. His aunt lived just 3 houses away from Olu's family home. He was different from the village boys. He wore expensive clothes and spoke English with a smooth city accent. One afternoon, Obinna noticed Olu at the village well. She was carrying a bucket of water on her head, moving with quiet grace. Something about her simplicity caught his attention immediately. Obinna greeted her politely. Olu was shy at first, but he was patient and kind. Slowly, she began to feel comfortable around him. Before long, Olu started looking forward to seeing him each day. Their friendship grew quietly. They often met under the big mango tree behind the church, especially when no one was around. The weeks passed quickly. Sometimes they walked together along the narrow bush paths outside the village. They held hands when no one was watching. At night, when the whole village was asleep, they sometimes sat together under the stars, whispering and laughing softly. Soon their innocent friendship turned into something deeper. One quiet night behind the old school building, their emotions carried them further than they had ever gone before. It was Olu's first time. She trusted Obinna completely. 2 weeks later, the holiday ended. Obinna returned to the city, promising that he would write letters and come back soon. But the letters never came. 3 months later, Olu began to feel sick every morning. Her body started changing. Her monthly bleeding stopped. Slowly, a terrifying truth became clear. Olu was pregnant. At first she tried to hide it, hoping somehow the problem would disappear. But mothers notice everything. One evening her mother looked closely at her and knew something was wrong. When her father finally found out, something happened that had never happened before. His hand rose suddenly. The sound of the slap echoed through the small sitting room like thunder. Olu stood frozen. Her cheek burned where her father's hand had struck her, but the pain in her heart was far worse. Her father, the man who had always called her my pride, now looked at her like a stranger. "How could you do this to our family?" he shouted, his voice shaking with anger and disappointment. Her mother sat quietly on a wooden chair, tears slowly rolling down her cheeks. The whole house felt heavy with silence. Olu wanted to explain everything, but the words refused to come out. All she could think about was the night behind the old school building, the promises Obinna made, and the way he said he would come back for her. But now the village suddenly felt smaller than ever. And the truth could no longer be hidden. Within 2 days, everyone in the village knew. Villages have a way of spreading news faster than the wind. Women whispered near the market stalls. Men shook their heads outside the palm wine bar. Children repeated what they heard from their parents. "Did you hear about the deacon's daughter? The one they always praised? Yes, she is pregnant." Each word felt like another stone thrown into Olu's heart. The same mothers who once pointed to her as a good example now pulled their daughters away whenever she passed. Some people looked at her with pity. Others looked at her with disappointment. And a few looked at her with quiet judgment. But the worst pain came from seeing the sadness in her parents' faces. Her father stopped greeting people outside the house. Her mother no longer led the women's prayer group. The respected family now walked through the village carrying quiet shame. One evening, her father called Olu into the sitting room. His voice was calm, but heavy. "Where's the boy?" he asked. Olu swallowed slowly. "He lives in the city." "Did you tell him?" She shook her head. Her father closed his eyes for a moment. "You will write to him." That night, Olu sat beside a small lantern and wrote a letter with trembling hands. She told Obinna everything. She told him she was pregnant. She told him she needed him. Then she waited. Days passed. Then weeks. Every afternoon the village postman passed their street, and every afternoon Olu secretly hoped he would stop in front of their house. But he never did. Slowly, the painful truth became clear. Obinna was not coming back. The boy who whispered promises under the mango tree had already continued his life in the city. But Olu's life had changed forever. At first she cried every night. She cried for the dreams she had lost. She cried for the love she believed was real. She cried for the shame she had brought to her family. But something unexpected happened. Her mother began sitting with her every evening. One night, while they were peeling cassava together, her mother spoke gently. "My daughter, mistakes do not end a life." Olu looked up slowly. "What matters," her mother continued softly, "is what you do after the mistake." Those words stayed in Olu's heart. Months later, she gave birth to a baby boy. The moment she held him in her arms, everything inside her changed. The fear slowly disappeared. The shame slowly faded. She felt something stronger than both. Purpose. She named her son Chima. God knows. Life was not easy. Olu had to stop school for a while and help her mother sell vegetables in the market. But she refused to give up. Years passed. She returned to school through evening classes. She learned sewing from an old village tailor. Soon she began making beautiful clothes for women in the community. Her designs were simple but elegant. Slowly, people began to notice her talent. The same village that once whispered about her now began praising her strength. Her small sewing shop grew bigger. She hired assistants. Her son Chima grew into a bright young boy who loved reading books. Then one afternoon, many years later, a shiny black car drove slowly into the village. People gathered around in curiosity. Cars like that rarely entered the village. The door opened. A well-dressed man stepped out. It was Obinna. He looked older now, more serious. But when he saw Olu standing confidently in front of her busy sewing shop, he stopped walking. The shy village girl he once knew had become a strong and respected woman. At that moment, a young boy ran out of the shop and hugged her. "Mama." Obinna stared silently. The boy's eyes looked exactly like his. Slowly he walked forward. "Olu." She looked at him calmly. "You finally remembered the road to this village," she said. Obinna lowered his head. "I came to apologize." Olu said nothing. "I was young and afraid," he continued. "I ran away from my responsibility." Olu placed her hand gently on her son's shoulder. "This is Chima," she said. Obinna knelt slowly. "Hello, Chima." The boy smiled politely. Then Olu looked at Obinna again. "I forgave you a long time ago," she said quietly. Obinna looked surprised. But forgiveness does not mean forgetting. She pointed toward her busy shop and her smiling son. "My life did not end when you left." She paused. "It began." And in that moment Obinna realized something important. The girl he once abandoned had become stronger than he ever imagined. And the village that once whispered about her now spoke her name with pride. Because sometimes the greatest strength is not in never falling. The greatest strength is in rising again after the fall. And Olu's story became a lesson told to many young girls in the village. A lesson about choices. A lesson about responsibility. And most importantly, a lesson that one mistake does not define the rest of your life. What defines your life is the courage to stand up, learn from it, and keep moving forward.